My Govanen, one and all, and welcome to the Literary Baptists. The full fellowship is here this evening. The fellowship is no longer broken.
And there was much rejoicing.
Zach, the Blackheart, how are you this evening?
Black of heart.
And I was like, when I saw that in the chapter, I only thought of Black Lung, and then it took me to Zoolander. Black Lung, Merman.
Merman pop.
Oh, shoot. Love that movie. Anyway. Nick and Maddie, how are you this evening?
Fine.
Well.
And effusive. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, we have renewed our commitment to podcasting through the Silmarillion, so congratulations.
The year 2056.
We we did hit our 1 year podversary not that long ago. I think it was before we recorded the previous episode, and I don't think we said a word about it.
Happy podversary.
We should have had a cake.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh man,
That would have been
I love
amazing.
cakes.
Let them eat cake.
I want cake.
Yes.
Bunch of cake eaters.
That'll be for podversary number 2.
Y'all can have cakes. I want a pie.
When we've got it all figured out, when we're professionals.
Oh yeah.
Professionals
Absolutely.
eat cake.
It's true. It is true. So we are discussing chapter 9 of the Silmarillion, The Flight of the Noldor.
Well, this time we decided to just jump right into the chapter, since we usually chat for like an hour before we start talking about the actual book.
Yeah.
But let's just start with the book first.
And
then banter.
I have one thing, and then y'all won't hear from me again for the rest of the podcast. In the first sentence, he says, "And the Valar sat in shadow, for it was night." And I just thought that was the greatest thing.
It's really the best time to sit in shadow.
Yes. Oh,
it was night?
It was night. That's why they were in shadow. Okay, cool.
Night's like just a big shadow.
That's like when Jesus was tempted in the desert and said after 40 days he was hungry.
He was hungry.
Okay.
I know you wouldn't have thought of that, but he was hungry.
And in for 40 days, he's hungry.
That's pretty impressive, though, because in 40 days I would have been dead. So.
Yeah. Rip.
For me, it'd be 4 days.
Yeah, it was interesting rereading this chapter after really so long, because it's been a while since we've done this. And I had to refresh myself on what happened. I was like, why is it dark? Why is this happening? Okay. It's been a while.
That's what I was speaking of dark. That was why, I think that was why it's that sentence actually, Zach, you're talking about the world being in shadow was this was basically the first time that there wasn't some lantern lighting up the Blessed Realm, right? They went from the lanterns that got destroyed, and then the 2 trees, which stood for a long time, and now they're destroyed. Now what do they got?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer.
I'm curious what y'all your overall feeling or thought of this whole chapter. I know Zach has opinions. He said he wasn't going to say anything else, but I feel like he might.
Feanor did nothing wrong.
Lies. Lies and deception.
All I see is the sterling character of Feanor.
Yeah.
He's a
He's
good boy.
courage and decisiveness, and he's just stability is another word I'd use.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
though? Is it a word that
No,
you
maybe
use?
not.
Are you really committed to that?
He really is a blazing beacon of bravery.
Man.
He's got his priorities straight.
Yeah. That's what we're gonna go with.
Make the Noldor great again.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man. Such a depressing chapter.
I actually, it was interesting. I guess I'd never noticed this before, but like, so Feanor makes several speeches in the chapter, and the like populist angle of everything he says, I just thought was really interesting, and for Tolkien especially to write that, it's just as interesting because Tolkien would certainly not be a populist. I mean, he had his own interesting political opinions, but this kind of like pontificating, pressure building type of leader that Feanor is, like, kind of, forcing his will on the people that follow him. I just think that was an aspect of Feanor that I hadn't really appreciated until I reread the chapter for this.
To go along,
if you read things, what he says, some of the things he says, just kind of out of context. If you just had what he said, you'd be like, "Yeah, man, this is good." Like
This is our guy.
if you didn't have the full picture of what had happened, you'd be, "Man, he's a leader of men." Like, let's go. Build that wall.
he's also big into critical race theory. And by that I mean he takes what Morgoth did and he's like, you Valar are all the same, you're oppressors, you're doing all this kind of stuff, and he's like, I'm not going to listen to any of you. And he basically is kind of like treating it, I mean, I don't know if you count it as a race, but whatever,
they kind of are.
Yeah, sure. So he's lumping in a group that really has nothing to do with each other other than that they're the same type of being, and treating it as homogenous, like, beliefs.
You're all as bad as the baddest guy who hurt me. You're all the same level of bad as him.
Yeah.
I was going to mention about colonizers, but it's actually kind of the opposite. Like they invited the elves to come to Valinor. They didn't come and take over the elves' homeland, but it's like reverse colonialism.
That happens too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kosovo is kind of like that. They invited a bunch of Albanians, and then the Albanians like, we don't want to be, we want our own land now.
So people talk about, well, I wasn't sure how deep I wanted to get into this, but people talk about, especially about Lord of the Rings, and they'll be like, Tolkien can't write a complex character. Like, everybody's either absolutely good or absolutely evil. But then I think, especially in the Silmarillion, but really even in Lord of the Rings, there are complicated characters. I mean, like, not like your contemporary, like, anti-hero who is in every book ever that somebody writes these days, but people who are like morally complex, maybe dealing in shades of gray, sometimes doing something really bad, and then sometimes being like a little bit relatable with how bad they are. I see Feanor kind of that way too, because like he's been through a lot of terrible things and would have reason to feel like the whole world is against him. Now imagine yourself that you are a person who's basically deathless, with incredible creative power. What would you do if you felt the whole world was against you? I think you'd go on campaign against all these forces that you think are holding you down. So I scare myself, I think, with how much I can identify with parts of Feanor. There's something interestingly human about him, I think.
I think what's interesting
Yeah.
about Feanor is that he is complex, like you're saying. Like I struggle with like, okay, he's not really in league with Melkor, like he's an enemy, but yet he's kind of doing Melkor's work because he's listening to lies, but not really. Like he's not just a puppet or a pawn of Melkor. He has a mind of his own. He has his own priorities, and it's just, I don't know, that I find very fascinating reading this story, actually for the second and third time, is just seeing the complexity in Feanor's character, because you don't really like hate him. He's not like a hateable bad guy.
No, I hate
And
him.
there is it's because you
Did you
got
read
that
the chapter?
Tulkas in you. That's why you hate him. You're just ready to brawl.
I didn't hate him until we got to the shipyard. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then I
And
hated him.
that is an event that changes history. Like,
Yeah.
the kinslaying at Alqualande is like it's going to come up in like almost every chapter after this. Like it's a world changing event. And it's ironic actually because he talks about in one of his speeches, and that, watch me not be able to find it now, but he talks about they're going to do things that are going to be talked about the world over, basically. And I'm like, yeah, exactly right. An evil event where elves killed other elves in a senseless war. And like, yes, of course. It was a prideful thing to say. Here we go. Therefore, I say that we will go on in this doom. I add, the deeds that we shall do shall be the matter of song until the last days of Arda. And he was right, but it was evil deeds, not heroic ones. Since we're on it, let's you want to talk about Alqualande? Since we're already talking about it.
Do it.
So,
Let me get my tissues.
so the Noldor have been kicked out of Valinor, basically. All these events have happened. I want to go back. So it's interesting. This chapter has sort of two storylines, one that's Feanor focused and one that's Morgoth focused. And so in the Feanor timeline, not really timeline, but storyline, the Noldor are kicked out of Valinor. They're not given any help. They're just like walking out. And they come upon the Teleri, who are the elves that didn't really go into Valinor. They kind of hung out at the coast. So these are like sea-loving elves. So like, there's like elves that live in woods, and then elves that love the sea, and so that's these guys. And so they're the ones that make the ships that look like swans, which we get imagery for that in Lord of the Rings. If you bother watching Rings of Power, you'll also see ships shaped like swans in there too. So they go there, and I think Feanor wants to try to take the ships and sail back to Middle Earth. And Olwe, who's like the king of the Teleri, doesn't really go for it because nobody trusts Feanor. Like, everybody knows he's kind of a bad boy.
He's a hothead.
Yeah. Which, ironically, right, because his name means spirit of fire, which I think is just Also kind of ironic for this event too.
Yeah.
There's a great quote. Olwe, when Feanor's talking to Olwe, talking about renouncing friendship, and Olwe says, "We renounce no friendship, but it may be the part of a friend to rebuke a friend's folly." And I thought that was so good. I wrote that in my commonplace book.
I love that. I was about to say that when you started saying it.
Would you care to expand on it?
Well, obviously it kind of harkens to the proverb, that it's like just reminds you of how important it is to truly give sound wisdom to your friends. And you see that Owe really does actually care kind of in this. I just thought that was so interesting that he's like, no, I'm actually your friend. I'm trying to give you a friend's rebuke here. I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm not trying to just let you go on your way. And I just love the way that it's written. It's so profound. And it does belong in a commonplace book, but you just see the hot-headedness of Feanor kind of coming up there brashly, trying to kind of use his words to convince them in the way that it worked on the Noldor, and it doesn't. And you could tell that it's just, so then he's kind of blaming them and always like, no, like, I'm your friend. I'm trying to stop you from doing this foolish thing. And it doesn't go well for them. I also couldn't just help but think of how there's always, it seems like always in history, we just have these like powerful men, sometimes women, but usually men, pop up on scene, you know? And Feanor, like, Tolkien just does a really good job of writing that type of character. I was trying to remember the play, I think it was a play that he had written. It was like an old English type play. I read it in one of his books. I don't know if he translated it or wrote it. But it was kind of like, I was trying to I'll look it up and see if I can find the name of it. But it's a Tolkien piece. And it's just about this warrior that just goes across to fight anyways. He knows that they're all going to die, and he does it anyways. And it kind of goes to show kind of the folly of that mentality. But at the same time, it's also considered noble. Like you're holding to that oath, that warrior's call, the fighting, giving it all you got, leave nothing on the table kind of thing. But then yet you see the folly in it. And I just think Tolkien just does such a good job of showing both intention that you can
reminds
see
me of the verse from the Psalm. I forget which Psalm, but like the one who swears to his own hurt but doesn't change.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what that just came to mind while you were talking.
Oh yeah. And just we're so removed from oath keeping as a culture.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's just like, just break the oath. Just don't go.
It's just words.
Just words. Just don't go. But
or like for
historically, that's
marriage,
not
it's
really
a piece
ever
of
been.
paper you signed with the state. It doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
That's
Just
a
the
major
idea
oath
that.
Go ahead.
Oh, just words are binding, but we don't treat them like that, let alone paper contracts, let alone covenants. We just, as a culture, generally speaking, don't do that anymore. I mean, nowadays, I'm completely derailing, but you get at the point where like you might shake hands with somebody and think it's a done deal, and then it's not. Like, but people always say, well, back in my day, you can be able to shake your hand on it, and it's as good as paper. But anyways, I just thought that was interesting reading this chapter and then leading up to that with Olwe and seeing how he's trying to stop Feanor in his haste. I think there was a phrase. Did he say overly hasty or something like that? I don't know. Tolkien used haste in here in a funny way earlier. I should have underlined it.
Tolkien does not like haste.
Yeah. It's the
He
end
really
speaking
doesn't.
over here. So hasty. But yeah, I just thought it was very realistic to historical figures and renowned historical figures. I just thought of like Alexander the Great as one example.
Napoleon.
Napoleon, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just kind of brazen, bold, overly confident, but yet successful character, and Feanor just embodies that so well.
Well, and those are the guys that get labeled like great man of history.
Yeah.
But they actually end up bringing so much destruction. And I would actually say the great man of history is the one who like faithfully trudges through his occupation and continues to hold down his culture, you know, and the stability of his community. Those are the nameless men and women, right? That's every bit a woman's occupation as well as men's, perhaps even more of a woman's occupation, you know, keeping things steady on the home front while all the men go off to war. But the great men of history are the ones that wage the wars and get the men killed. I'd love to see it be the opposite.
The closer we are to it, the less we tend to, because Adolf Hitler is another one. We tend to be like, not so much. Napoleon, everybody's kind of like, he's not really great, but. And then when we go back to Alexander the Great, we're like, yeah,
what a guy.
So, but the closer we are to it, the more we have an experience of somebody who's doing that kind of thing. It's kind of like, it's not great.
History has a way of smoothing the rough edges.
Yeah. Genghis.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan, or however you're
Like-
supposed to
like
say
the
it.
fact
I'm calling him Genghis Khan till the day I die.
He'll always be Genghis to me. It should honestly be a little bit scary that like there's a whole nation of people that sing about him still all the time. Like that's kind of nerve-wracking, actually. Like
Yeah.
that guy like ran a third of the world at one point. Like, don't anybody try to take up his mantle. Don't
Yeah.
soak his grave.
Ooh, you're starting to sound like dispensational and NAR. This is a reformed podcast.
This is where antichrists come from.
That voice.
behind
Where did that voice come from?
from the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got a million of them, man.
Speaking of faithful, quiet, working women, those wives and daughters who made the sails of those boats, legit.
I was sure you were going to say something about Galadriel.
So based. Oh no.
Yeah, Galadriel's pretty sweet.
Ugh.
I could see her angsty self, like from the Rings of Power. This is like
not seen what I have seen.
that.
Yeah, this is her, right?
That's what
This is her angst era right here. This is the mode she should have been in for that show. Like ambitious, looking for a place to like leave her mark, not a genocidal maniac. Like not a Mary Sue. Like this is like teenage energy here. And oh, doggone it, that book, the crap, I own it. It's right there. But there's the book about like the
in your hobbit hole.
Yeah, actually, never mind. Anyway. I need to go across the hobbit hole to get it, over by the casks of old Wynyard. But it talks about different aspects of I think it's called The Nature of Middle Earth. Anyway, it talks about different aspects of like the aging of the world, and a part of it is like how elves grow up, like their maturity cycle, like how many potentially centuries it takes for somebody to go from like middle school age type to like teenage to adult maturation, both like physically as well as like mentally, spiritually, whatever, is like so long of a period of time. And so I think about that for Galadriel here, like so eager to go and make her mark. She has so many years to carry on that type of an enterprise because she's an elf, and not a man, not man's kind. Just be interesting if Tolkien had written it differently, like what Middle Earth would be like if that kind of Galadriel had won out over the Galadriel who's in Lord of the Rings, who is more level-headed, willing to live in um oh good grief, I'm blanking on her realm. Yeah. Anyway,
Lothlorien.
I'm too many thoughts going through my head at once. Anyway,
I think it is Lothlorien.
Yeah.
Lothlorien. There we go. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Lorien. I'm like, that's short.
Maddie
That's
said
too
it first,
short.
by the way.
Good job. Good job.
I whispered it confidently.
Yes, Lothlorien. So like very much like a small hidden realm. Like she wanted to run a kingdom, like a Gondor type of place. What would have happened if she had been queen of a kingdom like Gondor or even Gondolin? It just would have been very interesting, I think. And would she have been a good queen? I don't know.
No.
Probably not. I think she had too much Noldor in her.
No.
I really don't think she would have been a good queen.
No.
I think her woods was enough.
Yeah.
So it's just some excitedly wild speculation on my part.
Yeah, I wonder where she was in all of this. 'Cause she's not really brought up necessarily.
So, Finrod was with
the-
Turgon. So in my copy, Galadriel's mentioned at the bottom of page 83. So Finrod was with Turgon, his friend, but Galadriel, the only woman of the Noldor to stand that day tall and valiant among the contending princes. So she's already learning to like keep up with the boys. Was eager to be gone. No oaths she swore, which is key. So she doesn't fall in with the oath of Feanor falling under that particular doom that they swore on themselves, aside from the doom that Mandos put on the Noldor as a whole. So no oaths she swore, but the words of Feanor concerning Middle Earth had kindled in her heart. I think kindled is a very interesting word to use. Again, giving the with the meaning of Feanor's name, Spirit of Fire. She's kind of perhaps beginning her own Spirit of Fire right there. The words of Feanor concerning Middle Earth had kindled in her heart, for she yearned to see the wide, unguarded lands and to rule there a realm at her own will. Of like mind was Galadriel with Fingon, Fingolfin's son, being moved also by Feanor's words, though he loved him little, and with Fingon stood, as they ever did, Angrod and Agnor, sons of Finarfin, but these held their peace and spoke not against their fathers. So there's like this faction of Galadriel with those guys to be like, we'll follow Feanor, but we won't follow Feanor. So like we're not down with his program, but we are going to follow with the train and head to Middle Earth and see what we can carve out.
I mean, if everybody else is doing it,
That's right.
you know, you got to do it too.
Well, and if you're banned from Valinor because you're Noldor, then you don't really have a choice. It's been forced on you. Like we've got to go. So these guys are revving and ready to go. We'll go with them then, and then what happens when they reach Middle Earth, is what happens. They could break fellowship there too. Because the elves are already used to being sundered anyway, all the different factions kind of live in their own, even in the Blessed Realm, they still kind of live separately from each other anyhow. So it wouldn't be that much different once they got to Middle Earth. Any other thoughts on the Feanor side of this chapter? Because I just have a few things I want to talk about with Morgoth.
For me, just the killing of his father, which happened earlier in the chapter, was just a very interesting scene.
Mm-hmm.
going from, especially that part where Mandos, like, I think it was Monway and who was it? Yavanna was saying that she could remake the light again if she just had some of the Silmarils. And Monway is like, well, why don't you do it? And he's like, yeah, no, definitely not. It was interesting that right after that, he didn't even know that they had been stolen yet, or that are being stolen maybe at that time.
He thought he had a bargaining chip.
Yeah. And then he
They're safe
said
at
that
home.
if he let them go, his heart, like, it would kill him essentially, and he'd be the first one to die. And Mondo said, not the first. And I read that and I was like, who died already? And then you read,
what
then
do
you
they
read a
know?
couple, then you read a couple more sentences down and you realize, oh, his, like, at this time, it's like Melkor is there taking over the Silmarils. And I just thought that was so endearing, I guess, like his grieving over his father and how much that affected him, because he does seem like he's a very selfish guy.
He really
but
loved
yet,
his father.
Yeah, he really loved his father. And so I don't know. I just,
because he lost his mother tragically.
Yeah, and this chapter is really sad, but extremely rich. And I was actually kind of surprised by that, because I remember reading it the first time, and it hits different when you read it the second time.
No cap, for real.
No cap. It really does. And there's just so much written, like with the oaths and the, I don't know.
Oaths and dooms.
It's just such rich writing. It's like, man, where does Tolkien get the stuff? Like, it's
like, and with Feanor, like where he says like giving up the Silmarils would like kill my own heart, and yet he's more than willing to kill so many Teleri and then burn the ships so they can't leave, and then hike out over the ice. Like, you are special. Or when Mandos pronounces the doom, and then he's like, oh yeah, well, I'll add my own doom then. Like, it's not enough. Like, I have to also do this myself. He's like shooting himself in the foot at every turn. Just a destructive guy. He takes after Morgoth. Yeah, a destructive guy who's insanely creative and powerful. We've never heard that archetype before, have we?
Right.
Sounds like Nick.
That's me. To a T.
I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued. I think there's like and I know like this is how people talk now, but like there's kind of like a trauma cycle with Feanor. Like things that happened to him at Morgoth's hand. So he goes into that position that you mentioned, Nick. That's sort of like a critical race theory type spiral, and then he begins acting just like his abuser, in like forcing his will.
What you're saying is that this is just a trauma response.
It's a generational curse. That's what it is.
It's trauma response. It's misunderstood. Poor Feanor.
Yes,
he did nothing wrong.
It's not his fault. He did nothing wrong. It happened to him.
Zach, you get it now.
Yeah, I get it now.
So he takes very Morgothy type actions on the people who follow him, especially on his sons. And then his sons go further on then into the story and do terrible things to other people that are very Morgothy. So like Morgoth, despite how much Feanor hated Morgoth, he really acts so much like him and makes other people act like him too. I don't know what to take away from that, but
well, it's just interesting how as humans we're so prone to that. Hating evil and yet being evil. And so often, like you brought up the critical race theory and all that kind of stuff, like we tend to respond to evil with evil.
Oh yeah.
It's like you think you're in the right, but you're really not. And Tolkien mentions a few times, at least in this chapter, that he's listening to Morgoth's lies. Like he's saying stuff and he's believing it, but he's following Morgoth's lies. And
he keeps meditating on him too. Like Morgoth tells him a lie, he remembers it and comes back to it again and again and again.
And it's interesting how he doesn't, like, he hates Morgoth. He wants to kill him, but he distrusts the Valar. But they're the only ones that have been true to him. But he's like,
and they're the only ones that have race. They're the same kind of people. He lumps them all together.
Systematic treachery.
Listen, Noldor lives matter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we can keep going with that metaphor. We'll just let it end here for now.
Okay, so a little bit about Morgoth, because he certainly had some things happen to him this chapter as well. I was especially interested in his dealings with Ungoliant. And I'm like, this is like my third time reading the Silmarillion, at least. I still can't get a handle on what Ungoliant really is. And I actually think Ungoliant might be more powerful than Morgoth is, because Morgoth is the most powerful of the Valar, and he's kind of like powerless against her. She can like waylay him and make him treat with her instead of running away. She pins him down and is ready to kill him, and I think if it weren't for his Balrogs, she would have killed him easily.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Like, with the Balrogs rescuing.
Yeah.
It's just the evil with evil. I'm just so fascinating.
Evil
She's almost like
evil.
like an embodiment of like a black hole. Just the depiction of her eating like the jewels, like in the beauty, and it just she's getting more powerful by feasting and utterly destroying. Like they're just forgotten, they're gone. And then
isn't she called an unlight at one point?
Probably,
the unlight, like the opposite of light.
Yeah, but she's like,
that's what she was producing, right?
Yeah, she's a devourer. Like it's so it's evil. Like Morgoth, like he has like a will, more like a plan. She's just like there to like devour all that is light and good.
Her god is her belly.
And I'm pretty sure that Tolkien like hates spiders.
Morgoth is pride, and Ungoliant is gluttony.
There you go.
I mean,
what's Feanor? Greed?
Well, is pretty gluttonous. You can't get much more gluttonous than so much wanting to eat that you just consume yourself.
She's the beast. She's the beast of wokeness. Just devours
continually
herself.
Consume until there's nothing left. It's more than just Gucci purses.
But it's not less than that.
But not less than a Gucci purse.
So
I listened to part of the chapter in the circus audiobook. And I loved his voicing for her.
Yes.
It was very animalistic and desperate kind of sounding, which she does kind of sound desperate, like give me with both hands, right? And then he gives her the bounty from Feanor's dad's house, and she's like, "Oh, you only gave me with the left hand. I want the right too." And it's some of it was like showing her power over him, like I can command you to give me what I want, but also kind of that like gluttonous desperation, like mama's got to eat, you know.
Never satisfied. Yeah, Nick, you're pretty right on with that gluttony thing.
There was
And
a
greed.
so there was a
Nick
YouTube
knows all
video.
about that.
It's true.
Takes one to know one.
What's the last thing you ordered at Arby's?
Oh man, not the meat mountain.
One day you'll be brave enough to get the meat mountain.
Yeah, someday.
Oh dear. Yeah, but what about this, like, that episode with Morgoth and the Silmaril and Ungoliant? Like how he has to hold it and it like burns his hand.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting too. Is like he's able, it burns him, but he's able to have them and wants them. Like that's, I think, very unique.
Yeah, he had to hold them. They had to be in something. He held it. So even though they were encased, they still hurt his hand, and he was actually clenching onto them harder because of the pain. Then he puts them in the crown later, and the crown it like becomes so heavy and galling to him that he can like not really move. Like he's like pained by it.
He needed an infinity gauntlet.
Why didn't he think of that?
Yeah. Just pop him in there.
Do you think he could have snapped Ungoliant out of existence if he had that?
He probably, maybe that's what happened to her.
So I have a question about the Silmarils. Do they do anything?
No.
There's no practical value to them.
They are pure art.
Yeah.
You sound so utilitarian.
Well, that's what I was thinking is that
do they give me powers?
There are no Americans in the Silmarillion. You know, they're not like practical. It's like, no, we're gonna do this for art.
These stones,
you know, the Silmarils for Silmaril's sake. You know, like it's just beauty. It's not, there's not a use or practicality to them that causes that desire.
Right.
It's just beauty.
Yeah, even though they contain light, they're not used for lanterns. You know, they're beautiful, and they're also like a totem of a bygone era.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there are no trees. The only thing left of the trees are the Silmarils. Sorry, I ran over you there. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said they belong in a museum.
You would say that. You and my Uncle Indiana.
But it's also not just beauty. I know you don't mean it like that, but it's like Tolkien's way of like pointing out the beauty of true light and how it's so much more. It's almost powerful in of itself, which is why I just think it's so strange that Morgoth, who's evil, would even want to be in their presence. But it's a different kind of beauty, I guess. It's not like God's holiness type beauty. It's like more earthly, I guess.
I wonder if it's there's intrinsic value in them simply because of their beauty. And even though Morgoth knows he can't change them, but if he were to continue to possess them, nobody else could behold them. It would be like destroying them, just because he can't destroy them, so he can keep them close and nobody else can admire them, I guess. I think he invented brutalist architecture.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that's the thing too that I think I just have always, I don't know what you would label this as, but I've always tended to see things like black and white, or at least expect things to be black and white. Like it always would confuse me when it was like people that I knew that believed in a false religion would be like nice. Like, wait, you believe in a false religion? Why are you nice? Why are you good? Like, why are you doing good things?
Yeah.
and it's obviously I kind of matured and understood it's more complicated than that. But in the same way, beauty is still attractive even to evil.
Mhm.
So you can have wicked rulers
Mhm.
who still admire and appreciate beauty.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's
You
just
could.
interesting. You
But
could.
you can also have the ones who brutalist
don't.
architecture.
Yeah. Which is interesting
Don't.
because we just stylistically we tend to do that. It kind of tells part of the story when we have a movie or a narrative. You know, it's like very rarely do you have a delicate, decorated abode for some evil villain. You know, like it's just usually not.
Except
Have you
Dracula, maybe.
did y'all watch Daredevil, the MCU?
Which one?
Not MCU, but the Netflix series.
Oh, yeah.
The Kingpin is who I
Yeah.
think of. Maddie describes that. He's absolutely brutal, but he's loves beautiful things.
Yeah.
Like,
Just like refined, like a refined gentleman who can
yes.
also like crush your skull with one hand kind of guy.
It's
That's part of why I didn't watch the show anymore. When they started crushing skulls, I was like, all right, I'm out. Slamming a guy's head in the door. Bye.
Yeah.
That's when I started watching extra hard.
Right.
So did my husband.
Oh, this is so good.
Oh, rewind that. Let's see the squish again.
That's too much, Lee.
Yeah, you must watch UFC.
I do like a good fight. I'm just too cheap to buy the access.
Fair enough.
On Ungoliant, I'm beginning to fall down a rabbit hole because there are people, especially on YouTube, that are like somewhat kind of linking some of the unexplained creatures of Middle Earth, linking them with some Lovecraftian type angles of like the old ones, you know, the great old ones of like really like scary and unsettling, maddening creatures that are beyond our comprehension that will sometimes peek into our world to do some horrible thing and then pull back. So like Ungoliant, the Watcher in the Water from Fellowship of the Ring, are two of what are often called the nameless things. I think it's Gandalf talking about like the nameless things in the dark places of the world that really nobody knows, not even he knows. That there are like hidden, unknowable horrors in the world that you want to stay away from and hope that when they do inject into the world at random times that they're not doing that anywhere near you. Of course, the
Like
Ring
Tom
brought out.
Bombadil.
He's one of the named horrors.
Man, I love Tom Bombadil. I'm a Bombadil stan, man.
Bombadillo.
He and Goldberry are like marriage goals, except for their courtship. That was a little icky, but they're like Middle Earth's power couple. So anyway, those were all my powerful thoughts on this chapter. Anybody have anything else before we transition to miscellany?
I did kind of have thoughts when I was similar to what you were talking about, the Ungoliant and being like weird creatures. It just kind of made me thought of like, it was a weird thought in my head, but like I imagine like Jurassic Park, like it just kind of gave me those vibes, you know, like because we have
Go
like
off, Queen.
fossils. Well, we have these like fossils of like huge creatures, even just normal creatures that are massive, giant sloths, huge snakes, just huge centipede, like horrible.
Beaver
That is
dams
like
the
the
size of
Ungoliant.
me.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes larger. But like just
That's
and
a
then
callback.
the what we would call the dinosaurs those creatures. Like it just was making me think of like what would that have been like walking in the woods, in the forest, in whatever regions that you're in, and having these huge creatures. It just, when it was talking about Ungoliant and then her offspring and the spiders and stuff, that was kind of making me think of it. Just kind of imagine it like Jurassic Park a little bit, like because we don't really do that anymore. There's not really, other than like grizzly bears and some large cats in the world.
Yeah,
for the most part. Maybe if you encounter a moose, he might attack you, but we don't really walk through the woods like expecting to get snatched by something.
Yeah,
so easily.
You're usually thinking about
give alligators some credit. All right,
alligators.
I live in Louisiana. I should give them some credit.
Give them some credit.
I don't
But
think
usually we are thinking about
that way
something.
if you were in Africa, though. You'd probably be you'd probably be like, "Is there a lion in the
Well,
woods?"
Australia is like, maybe Australia is like Middle Earth a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get
Australia just straight up is Middle Earth.
spiders as big as a German Shepherd, or something crazy like that.
Could you imagine
I would
spiders that
die.
big?
I'd die just looking at it.
Why would we imagine
that?
Maybe you can have like spider trainers. You can like have them pull a sled.
What were those spidery crab things that are in Way of Kings? What were they called? Chulls?
Yeah.
I think they're crabs, not spiders, but
I don't know, I didn't read it.
They're more crab-like.
But they're like the
like
draft horses of that magical world. They like pull carts and people ride them to get places. Just like big crabs. Way to go, Sanderson.
It's kind of like the Silt Striders in Morrowind.
What?
The game?
Yeah.
They ride like these big like flea things. I'm not a gamer, but I can bring up some from 15 years ago.
It's like a
or
warg.
like Ant-Man.
We saw your setup earlier, Nick. You're definitely a gamer.
True.
Oh, shoot.
But anyways, that was my thoughts. It just made me think of dinosaurs and large flying creatures and sea monsters and all those things that did legitimately exist and probably still do today.
Dragons.
I'm glad that I'm not going to get burned up by a dragon when I walk outside, but I kind of wish dragons were legit.
Dragons were exactly the reason why I started playing Skyrim.
Now we just need to mention all the other Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Oblivion.
Two of them.
I played Oblivion. Yeah. That's the only one I played.
Oblivion's the one I know the most.
Yeah.
But
I would turn on I would turn the difficulty to easy anytime I went to a cave. Because I was afraid of the zombie things that were in the cave. I was like, nope, not about that life. So I'd go do like a quest.
On easy.
On easy, and then come out of the cave and like put it back on normal.
Unbelievable.
I did it for the horses though. Like, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I could get the horses and I just ride the horses throughout the realm, and it's pretty amazing.
That's basically like when I played Red Dead Redemption 2, that's all I did. Like, I just went to go catch horses and train them, like shooting people and finding villages and stealing money. No. I just got all the horses.
You were a horse lord.
I was a horse lord.
A Rohirrim.
Congratulations.
Yep.
I feel like the first two sentences, the last two sentences of the first paragraph really set the stage for the rest of the story. Like,
tell us in your dulcet tones.
Then many voices were lifted in lamentation. Oh. And it seemed to those that mourned that they had drained to the dregs the cup of woe that Melkor had filled for them. But it was not so.
Oh, man. Imagine being the guy that wrote those lines and you're like, yeah.
Gosh. It's about to get real sad.
You put your fountain pen down and it's like the tip is on fire. Like, I got this.
Just I'm gonna write tragedy for the next 300 pages.
I write sins, not tragedies.
Oh man.
Uh,
Oh man.
Do-do, do-do, do-do-do, do-do.
I chimed in with people that heard of.
I don't care what it says. I
And
still love that song. Is this the miscellany conversation we intended to have?
about emo.
Midwest emo? Actually, I don't think they are technically Midwest emo, but that seems to be the trend now.
I have no idea.
is that an actual subgenre of emo?
Yes.
Midwest emo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It's more than just
Why?
They say big.
Angrier
They
in
say
some
big
ways.
in the.
I always thought Midwest emo was
Oh.
just Hawthorne Heights because of Ohio is for lovers. But apparently it is a whole like subgenre, and it's very like sad and edgy and kind of hard.
Sort
Which is
of like
interesting.
Ohio.
You got that right.
Florida
Sad.
emo was just sad, not edgy.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're emo experts.
Yeah.
The
I'm
world's
not.
foremost experts.
Our formative years were in the golden age of emo.
Yeah.
I guess
I've literally read a book about the history of emo. I don't remember what it
Really?
was called. I
Did
read
you
it.
really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yes.
You would.
Why?
Because
It was pretty good.
obscure.
And just kind of told the history.
From the basement.
Doesn't sound right.
There's actually quite a few. Nothing Feels Good. Punk rock
That's the one.
teenagers. Interesting. Andy Greenwald from 2003.
Yeah, I read it like then at the
Wow.
height of emo. He didn't even get to see it.
While shallow celebrities dominate the headlines, pundits bemoan the death of the music industry, and the government decries teenagers for their morals or lack thereof. Earnest, heartfelt bands like Dashboard Confessional, Whoop Whoop, Jimmy Eat World, Whoop Whoop, and Thursday are quietly selling hundreds of thousands of albums through dedication, relentless touring, and respect for their fans. This relationship between young people and the empathetic music that sets them off down a road of self-discovery and self-definition is emo, a much maligned, mocked, and misunderstood term that has existed for a very long time.
Emo saved
Wow.
America and probably destroyed it. If self-definition is part of it, yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
was a time bomb.
But the music industry got saved, so that's good.
Until they became
Wow.
sellouts and then they weren't cool anymore.
Yeah, well, you
How
just
could
have to
you
listen
listen
to
to them?
the. Yeah, once they sell out, then it's like
You
done.
got to move on to ska then.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to be at that right level where people are like, oh wow, that's very impressive, but also not just like garbage. They have to be people who are coming up and becoming big, but before they actually are.
Yeah.
Paramore was a great example of that, I think. Because they really started not doing well after they were on the soundtrack for Twilight. That was the beginning of the end for Paramore.
I hope that was the beginning of the end for everybody that was on that soundtrack.
Including Robert Pattinson himself.
Yes.
Dashboard did a song for Spider-Man 3.
Love
That's
that
okay.
song. Vindicated.
Vindicated.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
3 was
That guy's
okay.
voice is so high. Like I tried so hard to sing that song with the record. It was too high for even me. I couldn't handle it. But I love that song.
But Nothing Feels Good. I read it probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yes. maybe a little less than that.
I don't
but-
like that math.
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was forged somewhat through emo, so
Yes.
it's not the worst of memories, but I remember being a loser, so it makes sense that I listened to emo.
Lee, shut your ears. Sometimes I go back and I listen to it, and it's bad. It's bad.
It's
Hey, guess what? It
funny.
wasn't that great then.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's too. Like I just listened and I'm like, man, I really felt like this was like explaining my life, and I was so dramatic. Like, shut up.
And then the
So you-
titles were like chapter length.
Yeah.
like,
Stupid
1,000
little
miles long.
16-year-old me thought like my life was so rough. I had no idea.
Sort of like what Tolkien wrote in this chapter. You thought
It's
it was
true.
bad. You thought this is as bad as it's going to be, but you were wrong.
It's wrong.
It's going to be much worse.
Yeah.
When
It's
you when
so
you
hard
went
not to be like that to like teenagers or whatever. They're like experiencing their first like minor heartbreak.
You're the Simpsons meme, right? where he's telling Bart, this is
Oh,
the
yeah. Worst day you've had.
worst day so far.
So far.
I listened to a super cut of all the emo songs that refer to leaving this town. And it was
No.
like a 2-minute video, and there were no repeats. It was all songs that used the phrase leave this town.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It was awesome.
It's like there was Chat GPT before Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I left the
listened-
town that I lived in.
You did.
I did it.
You
left
I
this
fulfilled.
town.
I'm living the emo dream right now.
Yeah, you fulfilled your emo destiny. So did I, actually. I did. That's probably why I was all angsty to leave. Blame it on emo songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get out of this town.
The one
I'm in a
and
whole
the other
different
thing you left
state.
behind was the emo bangs.
Man.
Those were over quick.
Or just the black hair in general. Super greased.
Yeah, I think the only one of us here that could still do that would be Maddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am not doing the
It's like get the
bangs.
hair to like cover the one eye.
You had to be like,
Yeah.
And put a
Yeah.
bow
Oh, man.
on the part. That's the look. It is.
That's it.
I'm back to
That's crazy.
2003.
oh my
Oh
god.
wow.
And then yeah, every time they'd have to talk, they'd have to be like,
What? Are you talking to me? Oh, shoot.
Oh. I'm definitely listening to emo today.
yeah.
So good. So good.
Oh man.
I do
that's
think
funny.
Welcome to the Black Parade is our generation's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Hmm.
It is. It totally is.
I mean, it's good. I don't know
It-
that I would. It's not. No, it's not on the same level, man.
No. I'm just saying it's that kind of song for our generation, I think. Like a long operatic-esque type production, I guess. Like high concept, over the top,
You need to
and
listen
like
to more
universally
Reliant,
beloved.
man. Come on.
I had to look it up because I was just thinking like I don't really know. I knew it was My Chemical Romance, but that's like after my emo era.
Mhm. That
My
was late.
emo era was like 2003 to 2005, and once I went to college.
Oh my gosh, I graduated college in 2004.
Yeah, well, you're okay,
Because
Gramps.
you're old, Grandpa. We know.
I was in college during your formative years.
Wow.
That's when
Idiot.
I switched to like
Memento Mori.
basically like indie rock music, and
Yeah.
became a different person.
Is that when you listen to Dave Matthews?
I never listened to Dave Matthews. No,
Dave
that was
Matthews
below
was
me.
so big when I was in college. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I never liked Dave Matthews or U2.
U2
See, I
is
love
the
U2.
single worst band of all time.
No.
I'd rather
disagree.
listen to John Lennon songs
Hard
than
disagree.
U2.
I love
No
that
way.
Lee was like, I love you too. And you're
I
like,
love you too.
worst band of all time.
those
So
edge
good.
guitars, I can't get enough.
Ugh.
The
Okay.
twinkly
Did you
guitars
listen to
with
the
no
iPhone
attack
album?
whatsoever.
Some of those songs are pretty iconic because they were played so often. But I just never liked U2. I never saw the pull. It wasn't my jam. However,
good.
I did such a stark like 180 with my music listening. I went from listening to like Metallica and Korn to like then System of a Down, which is still pretty classic.
Yes.
And then eventually the emo stuff, because my friends were really into emo and they would make me the CDs. They would burn me CDs.
Oh man, I love the burning CD.
Yeah.
CD
I still
days.
have some, and they're all like written in the like girly bubbly lettering that my friend had. They're just very classic 2000s.
Yep.
And then like college age, I think it was like when I don't know. I think we've talked about this before, but like Nelly Furtado and stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh.
Like
Ugh.
the new stuff that she did. Because I remember there was such a
When she got
dramatic
nasty.
change. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I think the word you're looking for is promiscuous.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. When she became a
Yeah.
promiscuous girl.
I was such a sweet summer child. Like I did not think of that song in that way at all. And then literally singing the word.
How do you not?
I don't know. I didn't listen to the lyrics, okay? I just liked the music.
That's so funny. That's one thing that blows my mind. Like, I think I'm the only person in the world that actually listens to lyrics of songs. And everybody else is just like, oh man, I just love this music. And I'm like, have you listened to what
Yeah.
they're saying at
I
all?
do now.
But I've done that since I was a kid. Like, it was like,
Okay.
I've always heard the words first, I guess. I don't know.
I often misheard lyrics a lot. In fact, there was an 80s song. Fine Young Cannibals had a song.
Oh yeah.
And it says she drives me crazy. And I have this vivid memory of driving to school in the morning. I think this was like preschool or kindergarten. My dad was taking me in his turquoise colored Geo Metro.
Wow.
Like basically a tin can on wheels.
I remember those cars.
Listening to that song, and I heard in my head, she's trash can crazy. And I envisioned in my head some lady living in a trash can. Like to this song.
That's
and
just
I
a better
like,
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a 20-something, I heard it and I'm like,
crazy.
yeah, that one.
No one ever.
I was like, I don't understand why they sing about a lady in a trash can.
I can't hear that without hearing it being sung by like the Muppets. That's how I hear that song.
It could
That's
be a
probably
Muppet
why.
song.
It was probably like
Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah, Oscar the Grouch. That's probably
Living in a trash can.
my brain did that.
I think it was Miss Piggy.
But
well, she's
Oscar
trash can
Grouch does
crazy.
live in a trash can.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which is
she's trash
not
can
a great
crazy,
home.
so she could sing it. But I definitely misheard a lot of lyrics in my life. When I became a mother, that was like when your kids are starting to sing songs and you're like, wait a
Whoa,
second.
what did you just say? Yeah.
Or
That's
you go
funny.
to turn on like the 90s hits radio.
Don't do
You're like,
it.
let's listen to this, kids. This is what I grew up to. And you're like, they let us
Like,
dance to
I
this
love that
in
song, My
7th grade.
So-Called Life. Wait, never mind. We're going to turn this off.
Third Eye Blind. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Semi-charmed
Yeah.
kind of life.
My Semi-Charmed Life.
Oh man, that's such a bad song.
That is a
I have no idea
terrible
what song
song.
that is. I probably
Such
know
a
it.
good
Taking
song.
sips of it through my nose. What? You did what?
I probably would have thought that was like Dr. Pepper because I can't tell how many times I accidentally like got Dr. Pepper up my nose. I was just too naive growing up, which was good.
Naivete is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up
Up to a certain
on
age.
like 80s and 90s CCM. So I was like Amy Grant, Sandy Patty,
Yep.
Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, all
My
the
mom
big
was
names.
my
Yeah.
mom was huge in Amy Grant and Margaret Becker,
Yeah.
and I listened to Jars of Clay and
That's really all I was allowed to listen to for the first
But Amy Grant is a
13 years
harlot.
of my life. She wasn't then. That was a long time ago, Lee.
Yeah.
She might have
Yeah.
been, but we didn't know about it.
And now there's the drag queen Flamey Grant,
Ugh.
who hangs out with Derek Webb wearing a dress.
It is sad.
He likes my
loved-
memes though.
I loved Derek Webb's solo album, the Mockingbird album.
Mm-hmm.
I had that on full repeat junior year of high school.
Yeah, it's sad to see what's happened to him.
And just in general.
and-
I mean, I know
And
there's
Sufjan
some, but
Stevens coming out of the closet too.
yeah, that kind
That
of
hurt.
stung.
However, it did make the Wasps at the Palisades song make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
From Illinois.
Oh man.
who else?
It's kind of gay.
I pre-ordered that album.
Did you
The
really?
Illinois one. Like
Yeah.
I was huge
Oh,
Sufjan
man.
fan.
Love
And
that
I
album.
pre-ordered it. I had it, the day it came out or whatever. So
I was over at my brother's house and we turned it on his speaker system at his house, and we sang the song Chicago word for word. We hadn't listened to it in years and still remembered every word of
yeah,
the big single on there, Chicago.
I know that.
Oh,
I know it all.
great.
But I don't. It makes me sad now to kind of to
All things
listen
go.
to it when, yeah, all things go. Yeah,
We had our mindset.
You can tell the two people that don't listen to him.
yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Y'all missed
Yeah.
out.
You
But
all
I
missed
know
out.
I know who
also-
he is. I've heard some of his stuff, but not very much.
I'm the kind of person that rarely recognizes like a band or artist. I just know
I
the
think you
music.
would recognize that song, the Chicago song.
Yeah, if you played the song, I would probably know it.
I think you would.
I learned to play Casimir Pulaski Day on guitar. That was how much I love that album.
My favorite on that album was John Wayne Gacy.
Oh, so good.
The one where he's talking
Oh.
about these, and then he's saying like,
I'm really just like
my
him.
sin is also, like I
Yeah.
sin just like
Oh.
he does, equating it,
Yeah.
and then he goes
Look
and kind of
beneath
lives a
the
whole lifestyle of it.
floorboards for the secrets I have hid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, such a good song.
Yeah.
Who would
There
have ever
was-
thought an album for the state of Illinois and one of the songs on it is about a serial killer?
That's the best one.
It's a great track.
Yeah.
It's so good.
You guys should start a podcast about it.
We have for about the last 15, 20 minutes here.
That's what I'm saying. You already got material.
A Sufjan cast.
Ah.
All right. Any other miscellaneous items? Well, this has been fun. Till next time, may Monway keep you in the one, and peace out.